Hi, Lyssa here. I want to talk today about intuition and how we sort of intuitively know certain things that we bring into the coaching conversation. I got a very interesting question on one of my coaching demonstration videos, which was, how did I know to come up with the word integrity that bubbled up for me during the coaching conversation? And my first response to that was, I just intuitively felt the word integrity. And then, because of my beliefs around intuition being based on how we're paying attention to the entire field, I thought, what else was I paying attention to that invited this word to bubble up for me, and then for me to share it with my client? So again, the word was integrity. And as I was looking at this idea of where that came from, I realized that it didn't just come out of a vacuum. I had asked a series of questions. The client was talking about procrastination and why they were procrastinating. So what does procrastination mean for you? And the client had responded with things that need to be done, specific things that need to be done. I know they need to be done, and I'm not doing them. So it was sort of the first key to a sense of what the understanding of the word that the client was bringing forward was. The second piece of that was, when you're not procrastinating, what is different? And the client spoke to being productive, and that there was this shift into productivity. And then, what is in the way of you being really productive? And one of the things that really came out of that was, the client has so many demands right now going on that she's falling down in the area of being able to follow through on her agreements with other people so that she can do the part she needs to do, that they need her to do in order for them to be able to do their job. So I thought in my own mind, as the client is talking, this is sort of happening quick under not unconsciously, but not fully consciously either. I'm having this sense of, what is my experience in my own life when I am not able to follow through on agreements, and when my lack of follow through is maybe impacting somebody else's ability to do their job. And the words that were coming up for me had to do with follow through, integrity. I said I'm going to do something, therefore I do something. And that seemed to be an underlying value that was getting triggered for me. I'm not saying this was the value that was getting triggered for the client. I didn't know, but it was certainly based on what she was talking about, the value that was getting triggered for me personally. So, because in the coaching, what we're doing is we're testing our hypotheses. We're not assuming we know for the client. We're not assuming that what we experience is what they're experiencing. Yet we have the opportunity to invite inquiry into what our intuition is bringing forward. So in this particular regard, I said, may I share a word? The word that's bubbling up for me is integrity. How does that land on you? Or something to that effect. And the client was like, yes. Now the client could have said no, and my intuition would have just been telling me something, but it may have led, my transparency may have led to the client going, it's not integrity, it's this other thing, which would have been also totally cool and totally fine. But where our intuition often comes from is our capacity to be curious, not just about what the client is sharing and our observation and understanding of what the client is saying, but our own capacity to sort of dig below the surface of ourselves, so that my curiosity can be informed by my own internal experience. If this were me, this is the thing that might be getting triggered for me. I wonder what it might be for you. Let me throw this word into the space and see if it has any value. And so that's how the word integrity bubbled to the surface for me. And this is how many of our intuitions are going to bubble to the surface. Rarely is a client going to have said something and we're going to have an intuitive hit that is completely off base, unless we're really not listening to the client. And what we're doing is knowing that we need to meet a certain marker. And so we're just going to throw out a word for the client, but it's not really based on having listened deeply to the client. So in this particular case, it's a really great example of listening to the client as they're explaining what these different things mean to them, formulating my own sense of what that means for me, and then inviting the client to see if any of that was resonant for them. And in this particular case, it absolutely was. But I think it really speaks to the deeper issue around intuition also, which is we need to explore our own intuition as we're really in partnership with the client, listening deeply to what it is that they're sharing and going below the surface a bit with them versus just throwing out intuitions. I'm having an intuitive hit. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Only you can determine whether or not that intuitive hit is based on your capacity to really have heard the client. And it's a great place to practice in your coaching and then play with it and see how it goes. Even if the client says, no, that's completely wrong, it still gives you a place where you can go, okay, so that word didn't work. What word shows up for you? There isn't anything wrong with it. You just try a different strategy to get the client to have that internal awareness. So I think often coaching is really coaches testing assumptions and intuitions and insights and inviting the client to make meaning of those. So I hope this video was useful for you, and I'll look forward to seeing you in another video.